We not only need to pass a national right to abortion law, but we need to change the Supreme Court that struck it down to begin with. We need to expand that court. We need to terminate that court. We need an enforceable code of ethics on that court. This is part of, yes, it's part of my democracy agenda, which I'm very proud of. Which I'm very proud that the Wall Street Journal editorial page editorialized against and called radical. That's a good housekeeping seal of approval, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. But here's the thing about Mr. Garvey's answer. He would also respect the right of states to refuse abortion care for millions of other Americans, including Californians who are visiting other states.
Thank you, Congressman.
And that decision would be dangerous.
Mr. Garvey, your rebuttal.
I think you've been censured for lying.
I was censured for standing up to a corrupt
this
president.
Is exactly what I'm talking about.
It's Mr. Garvey's turn. Let him go.
Or trying to determine who we are by race or by color or by gender. They never listen. They have prearranged words to say. And by the way, I would not vote for a federal ban on abortion. Let's make that clear right now.
Thank you, Mr. Garvey.
All right, I'm going
to insist on answering. I was just called a liar by Mr. Garvey.
Okay, 30 seconds.
Mr. Garvey, I was censured for standing up to a corrupt president. And you know something? I would do it all over again. Because that corrupt president, that president who's been indicted with 91 felony counts, that president that you won't refuse to support, yeah, he's a danger. And I will stand up to him and Kevin McCarthy and Jim Jordan and any of those MAGA enablers of his in the Congress. The reason why our democracy is in trouble is because folks don't have the courage to stand up when they need to.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sir,
we're going to keep moving.
Let me just invoke my name.
All right, real quick.
Sir, you lied to 300 million people. You can't take that back.
Okay, we're going to keep moving. This is the showdown for U.S. Senate, and it really is the showdown for U.S. Senate.
You said that there was direct evidence of the fact that Donald Trump colluded with Russia back in 2016. Special counsel Robert Mueller said in his report, quote, "The investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government." Republicans argue that's proof that you used your position on the Intelligence Committee to intentionally mislead Americans, which is why you should not be on that committee.
We will be putting together a report that will set out for the country what evidence we have seen to date, what evidence we have seen in terms of the Russian hacking and dumping operation, what evidence we have seen in terms of the Russian social media campaign, their paid media campaign, and yes, the issue of collusion with the Trump campaign. There is significant evidence, much of it in the public domain, on the issue of collusion. The work is too important to leave undone. In particular, the American people need to know whether the Russians still have something they can hold over the president's head.
If you read the Mueller report, he makes clear, even in the first few pages of the report, that he states no conclusion on whether Donald Trump and his campaign colluded with the Russians. But let me just, set the record straight. This is only one of a shifting series of rationalizations and pretexts that McCarthy is using.
Well, let me give you another. He says that this is part of a pattern. Ahead of the first Trump impeachment, you said the committee had not spoken to a whistleblower. In fact, that turned out not to be true. You know, the Washington Post said so in their fact check.
Do you anticipate when we might vote on the ability to have the whistleblower in front of us, something you, the 435 members of Congress, you are the only member who knows who that individual is, and your staff is the only staff of any member of Congress who's had a chance to talk with that individual. We would like that opportunity. When might that happen in this proceeding today?
First, as the gentleman knows, that's a false statement. I do not know the identity of the whistleblower, and I'm determined to make sure that identity is protected.
The Washington Post identified that, yes, before the person became a whistleblower, they sought advice from the committee. When I was asked the question, I thought they were referring to whether we had brought the whistleblower in. And I should have been more clear in my answer.
I do not know the identity of the whistleblower, and I'm determined to make sure that identity is protected.
First to Congressman Schiff. In 2019, when you served as chair of the House Intelligence Committee, you spoke repeatedly about, quote, ample evidence of collusion in plain sight between the Trump campaign and Russia. 5 years later, many Republicans, including Mr. Garvey, say that you lied about that evidence. What is the evidence, and did you allow partisanship to get ahead of the facts as you investigated Trump?
The evidence is pretty clear. Donald Trump's campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, was secretly meeting with an agent of Russian intelligence, giving Russian intelligence internal campaign polling data, while that same unit of Russian intelligence was helping the Trump campaign through a hacking and dumping operation, through a email, through a social media troll farm in St. Petersburg. So yes, that's collusion, and what's more, the Russians reached out to Donald Trump's son, Don Jr., and offered what they said was dirt on Hillary Clinton as part of the Russian government's effort to help the Trump campaign. And what was the Trump campaign's answer? It was, if it is what you say it is, we would love it, preferably in late summer, which is when the Russians started dumping the stolen emails. So you're darn right, there's evidence of collusion, but it's just a part of the damning evidence against Donald Trump, not just with respect to Russia, but his withholding of hundreds of millions of dollars from Ukraine, a nation at war, which was ultimately what he was impeached for when I led his Senate trial.
That's time. Thank you, Congressman. Congressman Porter, you are known as a warrior against corporate influence in politics. But before running for office, you consulted for a mortgage servicer. Does that work undermine your credibility as someone that would hold corporations to account?
I have never taken corporate PAC money, period. And I'm the only elected official on this stage who can say that. Representative Schiff may have prosecuted big oil companies before he came to Congress, but when he got to Congress, he cashed checks from companies like BP, from fossil fuel companies. I have delivered results on climate in my few years in Congress. I have raised the rate, my legislation to raise the rate on polluters when they drill in our public lands was signed into law.
Real quickly, your chance to respond.
Well, first of all, I gave that money to you, Katie Porter. And I was happy to do it.
In office when you were taking fossil
the only
fuels.
response I got was thank you, thank you, thank you. But look, at the end of the day, it's about what have you gotten done? I didn't hear anything from Representative Porter about anything she's actually accomplished. I've taken on oil companies and prosecuted them. I've gotten mass transit built. I've worked on bipartisan legislation to expand open space. At the end of the day, what Californians need more than anything else is not more talking points. Yeah. They need action, and they need action in particular on climate.
Thanks, Congressman.
Honestly,
we need
Representative Schiff, I didn't realize how much dirty money you took until I was running against you. You've taken money from big oil, big pharma, cable companies, and other industries.
All right, we're going to keep moving.
President Biden says that his economic record is one of the reasons that he should be reelected. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the economy for the average Californian right now? This question's for all of you. We'll start with Congressman Schiff.
Too many people are struggling. The problem today is not that people aren't working. The problem today is that people are working, and they still can't make enough to get by. But I think the president has done incredible work, but there's so much more that we need to do to deliver for California.
So just to follow up on that with the things that are still yet to be done, can you put a number to how you would rank the economy right now between 1 to 10?
You know, I would say probably a 7.
Mr. Garvey, so we hear 7 from Congressman Schiff. What would your number be?
Oh, I would say it would be 5 at the most.
Congresswoman Lee, Mr. Garvey says it's a 5. How would you rate the economy?
Well, thank you for that question. Let's be honest. Here in California, we have 40 million people. 20 million, one paycheck away from poverty. Who can make that off of a minimum wage here in California? So we've got to reduce the cost of living.
A number from 1 to 10?
6.
Okay. And finally to you, Congresswoman Porter, how would you rank the economy between 1 to 10?
Well, I would say it's a 5, but that's because we have an average. We have people who are experiencing a 10.
Please finish this sentence, and this is for all of you. If the American people should choose former President Donald Trump to return as Commander-in-Chief, then blank. Mr. Garvey, we would start with you.
Well, I think the single greatest currency we have is the right to vote. And I think we should take this personally. And I think when we vote for a president and he's duly elected, I believe we should support that president, support the office, because that's the leader of the United States, the free world.
Congressman Schiff?
If Donald Trump is elected president, then we are, and it rhymes with crude. He is the gravest threat to our democracy in our history. He tore down our institutions. He incited a violent attack on our Capitol. The best thing that we can do, and I've gone toe-to-toe with him, and if need be, I will go to toe-to-toe with him again to defend our democracy. But his election would be the gravest threat in our country's history, certainly its modern history.
Congresswoman Lee, let me repeat the question. Please finish the sentence. If the American people choose former President Donald Trump to return as Commander-in-Chief, then blank.
I'm going to say first, I believe that our Republican opponent here on this stage has voted for Donald Trump twice, according to public reports. That agenda is an agenda to dismantle our democracy. And so if anyone on this stage believes that Donald Trump should be president because of his position to dismantle this democracy, then where are we here as a state and a country? So I will fight to make sure that we protect our freedoms, to protect our democracy, and to protect Donald Trump from ever again running for public office. And right now, I'm taking him to court. I'm the lead plaintiff in the NAACP lawsuit to hold him, the Proud Boys, and the Oath Keepers accountable. He is not above the law.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
Congresswoman Porter, if the American people choose former President Trump to return as Commander-in-Chief, then blank.
Then we will lose credibility on the world stage. It will set us back decades in terms of diplomacy and being able to build democracies around the world. It will cause us to lose senior military leaders who refuse to serve under somebody who was engaged in inciting an insurrection, and it will weaken the diverse recruitment of the military that we need to keep our country safe.
And I just want to underscore what Barbara Lee said. Mr. Garvey, you won't tell the public whether you're going to support this man again. You voted for him twice. You saw what he did on January 6th. You have to see what a threat he is to the country. I can understand you don't want to alienate MAGA world by saying you're against him, but you also won't stand up to him. What more do you need to see of what he's done to be able to say that you will not support him, that you will not vote to put him back in office? What more do any of us need to see?
Well, actually, that was going to be my question. So,
I was channeling you, Alex.
Mr. Garvey, we'll give you a minute because that's going to be your topic. Yeah.
I mean, there's identity politics at its finest right there. Trying to paint me into the corner, trying to call me MAGA.
Yeah.
Ms. Lee tried to paint me in the same corner also. I'm my own man. I make my own decisions. I voted for him twice because
we'd like to
I
know,
thought that he was the best person.
as your own man, what is your decision?
Let him answer. It's his turn.
You're banging on that trash can just like the Astros did a few years ago. And as I will continue, that I think that it's important to, when two people are the final two people, that you choose the person that you felt was the best person for the job. But if his first opponent talked down to the people of this country, his first opponent thought she was entitled.
You're talking about Hillary Clinton.
His second opponent stayed in a basement and only came out in controlled environment.
But they both. By
the way, I wouldn't have voted for President Reagan if he stayed in the basement.
Okay, but
so both times he was the best person for the job. How you feel about him personally is totally different.
But now,
economists say economists say that he did an exceptional job for our economy. People will say he created jobs for minorities more than any in this history. So you can take things personally, but as far as I'm concerned,
let's keep this together. Let's keep it together. Here's the question. At this point, Donald Trump has been president. Joe Biden has been president. We've seen both of them as president. Are you still undecided if the choice is Donald Trump versus Joe Biden? As you suggested to Politico, you may vote for Joe Biden. How are you undecided, and what would make that decision for you?
I didn't say that.
Okay, so we'll clarify your view then.
When the time comes, I'll do exactly what I said to you. I will look at the two opponents. I will determine what they did. And at that time, I will make my choice. I don't believe Joe Biden has been good for this country. I heard it said that that Trump was terrible for the world, right?
Yeah.
He was.
That we were less safe. We were safer more under him than we are under Biden. We're on three different platforms throughout the world.
So Congressmember, he's arguing that that we were safer under President Trump. What do you make of what he just said, and what's your response?
Well, California, I think what they say is true. Once a Dodger, always a Dodger. He just chewed up 2.5 minutes of the time to talk about substantive issues in this debate and refused to answer the question. Ballots go out in 6 weeks, Mr. Garvey. This is not the minor leagues. Who will you vote for?
It is important that California voters know who is who and what these candidates stand for.
You know I'm not a politician, but I needed to talk to the people of the city. I needed to talk to the homeless, went up to them and touched them and listened to them. And you know what? They looked at me and they said, "You're the first time anybody's come up and asked us about our life." The homeless man who spent 5 years on the street in Sacramento. They don't get it. When I go back to the Senate, a year from now, when I'm your next elected U.S. Senator from California, the first thing I'll do is an audit. Where have the $30 billion the federal government has spent? Just look at the Alpha Project in San Diego and the Dream Center right close here. These are examples of what can be done when you spend your money wisely. And by the way, these are career politicians that talk about Washington being dysfunctional.
Thank you, Mr. Garvey.
You're Washington.
I know I'm the youngest person on this stage, but my career didn't just last 5 years. I was elected to Congress 5 years ago. I am not a career politician, but I'm proud of the work I've done in Congress.
Congresswoman, we need to let Mr.
So
Schiff get in
patronizing,
there.
I've just got to say, as somebody who's been unsheltered, I cannot believe how he described his walk and touching and being there with the homeless. Come on, please.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
Well,
Congressman
you
Schiff,
do
you have
that
not had...
really care. If you care about the homeless,
Mr. Garvey, we need to let
Let's get some order.
in
Let's
here.
get some order in here.
Alex, thank you.
We're in the court.
First of all, and this will be my one and only baseball analogy for the evening.
Okay.
Mr. Garvey, I'm sorry, that was a total swing and a miss. That was a total whiff of an answer. And I say that, you know, credit where credit is due, you are a hell of a ball player. Can I just say that? You are a hell of a ball player. But here's the thing. This is predominantly a problem of not enough housing. It's a supply problem. Alex, California needs a senator who can lead in the big fights, but also has a record of getting things done. As you point out, we have a lot of similarities in our voting record. But when our country was threatened by a would-be dictator in the Oval Office, one of us stepped up to the middle of that fight. I took on the president. I investigated him. I led his impeachment when he incited an insurrection against our country. I served on the January 6th committee to hold him accountable. We need a senator in California who's ready to lead in the big fights, but we also need a senator who can get things done. I have a record of getting things done.
So you have seen direct evidence of collusion?
I don't want to go into specifics, but I will say that there is evidence that is not circumstantial.
This is about as clear evidence you could find of intent by the campaign to collude with the Russians.
I think there's plenty of evidence of collusion or conspiracy in plain sight.
I did say that there is ample evidence, and indeed there is.